if you choose to spend money in your community, you can get a part of that back. And I think that's really important. Amazon exists to maximize shareholder value. It does not exist to help entrepreneurs sell products. They can deplatform you at any moment in time. Amazon has its own version of civil forfeiture. If somebody, say you're a seller and you maintain $500,000 of goods in an Amazon warehouse because you have to sell at the Amazon warehouses, or you pay more to sell on their platform, and somebody accuses you of like fraud, Amazon will just take your shit and hold it. And there's no due process at Amazon.com, right? Like, there's an amazing guy named Ed Rosenberg who runs like a seller advocacy community. He was charged with a crime in the Western District of Washington. Amazon accused him of fraud. They accused him of $100 million fraud, and he ended up pleading guilty to like a lesser crime and got probation. So there was no $100 million fraud, but he was within the jaws of the DOJ, and like he couldn't afford to keep fighting through trial, which would have cost millions of dollars. But anyway, he runs the seller organization, and it's really terrifying to see what Amazon can do to sellers. Like, if you run a business and you sell on Amazon and you keep stock with them, they can take it away at any day. I know that a lot of us, have a lot of thoughts about January 6th or Parler, which was a social media platform on which a lot of January 6th planning happened, as it also happened on Facebook. But Amazon, right after January 6th, platform Parler ran on AWS, and Amazon just deplatformed them, destroyed the business. And they can just do that. They can say, you don't get to run your servers. You can't run on our servers, and you're done. Mm-hmm. And so I think, it's a dangerous place, and it's not to help you. It's not to help me. It's to help the shareholders.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about the need for us to both buy from small businesses, which I'm trying to do more and more, and then also diversify, like these companies are trying to have monopolies over everything, monopolies over, are they hosting an app, or are they the marketplace, the everything marketplace that we need to get everything from? But to be able to have like multiple different social media apps, multiple different places where you're getting your stuff from, and to diversify so that one thing doesn't become just so powerful that it's able to flip a switch and destroy somebody's life or destroy someone's business. Yeah. And so to that point, I wanted to ask you about like the diversification of your social media channels and TikTok, and the role that TikTok played in like you getting your story out.
Yeah. I mean, when a lot of times, often, almost always, when you're accused of a crime, your attorneys will tell you to be quiet, to be small. Anything you say can be used against you, so you shouldn't say anything at all. Meanwhile, your accusers can say whatever they want in the form of filings, or if the DOJ, they charge you with one thing I don't understand about the DOJ is like they'll allege you committed a crime and then have a press conference to announce their allegations, right? Like, it would be like if like the Seattle Seahawks held a press conference to be like, we plan to play the Buffalo Bills. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Theatrics, it's wrong. But in my husband's case, I had a strong presence on social media, not on TikTok, but for my business as the Riveter. And we remained quiet for a very long time, I think hoping it would end, hoping it would resolve before it was a public story about our lives. But it didn't. And at a certain point, I had to take another job outside of my company to support our family and pay legal bills. And I got a job with a public tech company, $1 million a year in compensation. And then they fired me on the 5th day because they read an article about the civil forfeiture. And so I realized at that point, whether I was quiet or loud, like the story was happening. And if we didn't say anything, everyone would believe Amazon. And I also realized at that time that my 4 girls were going to grow up and they were going to read about this because it was on the internet. And win, lose, or draw, I wanted them to know that I tried to do everything that I could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I started talking about it on Instagram a little and on X. I wasn't getting like a ton of traction, and I'd been watching TikTok a little bit, and it's a complicated story in some ways. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just start making videos and maybe someone will listen. I had no idea what would happen because this is like, complicated legal stuff. But I started making videos, and I have 250,000 followers on TikTok who tune in and have for years to hear about this story and who understand like the legal nuances. It's also been, it's by being on TikTok, one of Amazon's witnesses a man named Kyle Ramstetter, who had pled guilty and had his plea vacated. He found me on TikTok and he called me and he said he had been threatened and coerced and told what to say and that my husband did nothing wrong. And if I hadn't been on TikTok, he would not have been able to call me and say that. Amazon sent me a cease and desist telling me to stop my TikToks by a certain Friday, or they were going to tell the Department of Justice that I was witness tampering by being on TikTok. And like, I'm a lawyer, and I was like, no, that is not how this works. Like, go ahead. And one of the things they also said in the letter was they wanted me to stop naming the attorneys and putting their pictures up who were doing this to my family. But I think it's really important, and I would give this advice to anybody listening. If you are being bullied, ostensibly by a corporation, the corporation isn't doing anything to you. The corporation is a logo. It's a fiction. People are doing this to you. And if we say it's a corporation, we excuse the people that are deciding to do this to you. Never excuse the people. Hold them accountable. Make the world know who they are, right? Because they need to. It is the only way this ends. It's the only way.
Absolutely. And to shame them, as you say, the very judge who was financially benefiting from Amazon, when he was called out behind closed doors, he wasn't going to recuse himself. But then when he was blasted on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, people have egos, and I think a lot of people have visions of themselves as doing maybe not what's right, but what's accomplished, what others would commend, even if it's in a sinister way that they're commending what's happening. But they do care about the public's perception of them. They
do, and it will go with you in your life. These things will stay with you throughout the rest of your life. Like, maybe it doesn't matter to you today, but one of the Amazon lawyers who's really done this is the head of business compliance and ethics at Amazon. His name is Yusri Omar, and I've seen the presentations he gave to the government with flat out lies in them in writing. And I think this will deeply impact his career. And the other thing is, his kids are going to grow up and read about it online, and they can make their own decisions. But
what would you say if they ever apologized to you? And I know that won't happen, but what would you say? Yeah, they won't. It's not within them.
I mean, if they did, I don't want revenge. I just want justice, and I want to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else, right? Because it is I think it is somewhat of a miracle that we're here, and that we survived this. It's everything broke our way. There was the truth, but the truth doesn't always win. Mm-hmm. And so
I think it always comes out, though. It always comes out, even if it's. But I think you did win in the short term, right? You could have very easily, or your husband could have pled guilty and caved to the pressures and all of these threats that you were getting for posting about this. Had you not known that they were baseless, you could have just done what it is that they wanted. But yeah, I think the truth does not always win in the short term, for sure. But I do think it always comes out in the long term. But that could take years. It could take people getting sick, people dying, people losing their homes.
And it also takes somebody willing to speak, Mm-hmm. And then if you don't have an audience, somebody willing to share it with the world. Yeah. And I think, and there's that too. And that's one of the things that's just blown my mind. And I don't know if I was just naive about journalism, but it's been tragic to see that no journalist from a major paper is willing to investigate this, right? And I think it's just wild, right? It's just, I mean, I had one journalist say to me once, and this was during the Biden administration, they said, look, this story is unbelievable and it's horrible, but we can't tell it because it backs up Trump's view of the DOJ. And I was like, your job is not to I didn't think their job was to choose a narrative and go with it. And it's the uncomfortable truth that even if you hate Donald Trump, some of the things he says about the Department of Justice are correct. Yeah. Right? And Biden said the same things when they prosecuted his son. It was unjust. It was selective prosecution. And I believe it was selective prosecution, but also President Biden should understand, again, every decision by DOJ is selective. Mm-hmm. And I tend to think they indicted Hunter because they had indicted Trump and they wanted to look balanced. It's a game, right? Yeah. And it's a game that a lot of people just kind of read about and watch and don't think about very much. But God help you if you're accused of a crime and someone throws you into the arena. And like if they did apologize, all I would say is, what are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else again? And also, please put us back in the financial position we would have been in had you not done this. Like I will say, we sent Amazon after my husband won, after the DOJ investigation was over, we sent Amazon a letter saying, like, you know, we think you owe us this much money. And they said the letter was full of lies and to go pound sand.
Yeah. Of course they did. So what would you say to people who are, so you still have a legal case potentially that you have to face down in civil courts, but on the criminal side of things, you won. Like you beat all the odds and you won. And what would you say to people who are going through it right now, standing up to a bully or a corporation or a person that is making their life complete hell and they just don't see hope?
I would say I'm sorry because it is hell, and it oftentimes feels like there is no hope. But I think that if you stay the course and keep fighting and fight by trying to expose the truth and also try to figure out the truth. Like defending yourself against false allegation involves a lot of work. You know, we had to figure out, this is my daughter Merritt. Say hi.
Hi.
Really?
I like your shirt.
Okay, I'll come, give me 5 minutes and I'll come out, okay? And sorry. So I would say to them, don't give up. Keep fighting for the truth. And fighting for the truth involves a lot of work and digging and asking for help and being vulnerable. And I think one thing, again, that I've mentioned a few times, I think one of the most effective and important things to do in fighting is to stand up to the actual people that are hurting you and hunting you. And I know that sometimes can feel unsafe, but I believe when you are being bullied, the safest place to be is in the light. Because Jeff Bezos owns a paper, and the tagline of that paper used to be, "Democracy dies in the darkness." And it does. But if you throw sunlight on it, you have a chance to be safe and to win.
Totally. And I agree with you. Okay. Thank you so much, Amy. This
Thank
was
you.
so great. I will send you, do you want me to send you clips
Yeah,
that I
send me
can
clips and
post?
I
Okay.
can post reels and TikToks. And I will share the things I said I would share last
Amazing.
night. I just,
No rush.
no, but yeah, and I'll post them and I'd love to share them. You're a
This was
great
so great.
interviewer. Thank you
Really?
so much for
Okay,
doing this.
good. I'm so
Yeah.
glad.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon. I'll
Okay, I'll
probably
talk to
have
you
this
soon.
one next week.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.